Okay, cool. Let's do that. So, I'm just looking at the chat. Oh, Jesus, Taraka, like that destroyed your whole chat. Okay, anyway, so Jetlag had a question, I believe. And yes, Jetlag, we will go back to chapter 1 and look at stuff. Can you just bound the two lead together in a pair? So let's look at this. Let's copy this solution and open it so that we can sort of play around with it. So you're asking the question of the lead are these H's. Oh yeah, shit, good point. Like, let's get rid of this and just put down a bond. Right there, right? Does that work? Right, so it automatically bonds those. We only need one sort of thing. Of course, I set this up wrong, right? So it did all sorts of crazy nonsense up here, and now it's 100% broken. But yeah, you certainly, like, if we had done this smarter at the beginning, we could have had a bond form right here, and then sort of like come up here and turn it, maybe. I'm gonna see if I can do that right now. So this is on 2. So 2, when it goes up, before it returns, have it rotate this thing. So it forms that thing, forms a bond, it goes like that. Like, look at how this is... Oh, I didn't do it the second time. I forgot there were 2 parts to this. Do it again. Is this gonna work? Right, so that looks like we wanted it to look, and then everything else should just work the way that it works. And this molecule looks right, so now the cycles are gonna go. Let's see how that affects things. It shouldn't affect our cycles, I don't think, and the cost is pretty close. So just doing it, just making that change, maybe didn't make much of a difference. But that does seem like it simplified things a little bit. Actually, the cost should be down a little because I'm using fewer mechanisms and fewer bonds. So anyway, let's just see what the stats look like. But you can see how there are lots of opportunities to do things in a different order and have that change. I think this was maybe 540 before. So this is 520. This was 570. So we saved... like 8% of our cost just by making that little change. That was like a really good note. Really interesting. Okay, let's go down. How do I return to menu? There we go. Let's go back to... Oh, so this is like the tutorial. We can go beyond the tutorial. We can look at refined gold, actually. Let's create a new solution and open this up. So this is going to be much, much simpler. And it's also going to use a new mechanism that we didn't use before. The product that we want is gold. And we're creating gold out of lead and what is this? Quicksilver. I usually drag and drop symbols. I usually drag and drop symbols from this tray and then manipulate them over here by copying and dragging with control. But if I am doing something repetitive, like for example, it's certainly been the case where I've like, done something, I put down a mechanism and like give it a rotation or something that like repeats over and over and goes way down here, like this sort of a thing, and then be like, oh shit, all of these are rotating the wrong direction. I actually wanted them to be this, like this. So that has a hotkey A, and I can just like hold down A and click all of these. So I will do that frequently, but I usually, it's easier for me if I'm just doing one thing at a time to pull them symbolically off of the tray than to I need to look and see what the hotkey is and then find it on my keyboard, and that tends to be like more of a pain if I'm just doing like individual instructions. Okay, so the mechanism that we're going to use is this fancy thing here. And this has two parts to it. One is it takes mercury, or it takes an element of some kind, starting with lead. And the other side takes mercury, and for every mercury that you give it, it upgrades this lead. And there's a chart. These are all of the elements in the game, where you can see lead is like the lowest element of the lowest form of metal. And then there's a hierarchy from lead to tin to iron to copper to silver to gold. And you can use Quicksilver to transform one to another up to the top. There's also sort of like these other elements that you use sometimes. So the sort of easy way to do this is to say, like, first let's put the lead on here like that, and then we'll grab the Quicksilver and put it up here, and then come back, and then actually, how many times do I need to do that? 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to step it all the way up. So this is a repeat instruction, which just sort of like is a neat little copy paste thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this at that point can move it again, I think like this, and then go back, and this is backwards, right? I want to be moving it this direction. So you see every Quicksilver that you put on here changes this, and then as soon as it turns into gold, I'm grabbing it and putting it up. So this has got a very small area, which is good. It's got, I think, probably decent cycles, but you can see like there's a hitch there, like it pauses for a second. So that means that you can probably get the cycles down. If you could arrange it so that it is going all the time, it is always moving stuff off of there, then you could probably get the cycles down. And indeed, you can see from the histogram, this is probably very similar to the solution that most people use, right? I am right in this big bar for all of this. Oh shit, and I did this much better, I guess, than I previously did. My area was 11, and now it's 7. Let's go back and look, actually. But my cycles are higher. So I actually did it faster last time. That's interesting.
We're grabbing a quick coffee. Would you like it?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. See ya. So this was, oh yeah, I was using this thing. I was trying out this thing. So let's see what this looks like. Right, so this kind of mechanism just is continually putting these down. It needs to, like it doesn't do as much back and forth, right? So it can move faster, although it still stops at one point, like it hitches right there. And so if it were set up so that it could move even faster, that'd be great. But you can see this cycle's lower, and lower than sort of the peak of the histogram. Yeah, I have not, as much of this game as I've played, I haven't played enough of it to have really gotten to like know the hotkeys, and I certainly haven't talked about it with enough people to sort of do that. But that's very cool that like that turns into a language. Let's see if there's something else here. So that's sort of the first real problem. Let's look at something. So I'm real high on cycles here. Like, I'm just wondering if it's worth looking at this and trying to optimize it at all. Like, what the hell was I doing here? This looks very spread out, first of all. Oh yeah, there we go. I see. So the product is, I like recognize that the product had this mirror sort of a thing, and I wanted to just use one bond, I guess. I mean, you know, this is chapter 1, so I was experimenting with a lot of stuff. Seems like this could definitely move faster. I mean, for one thing, whoops. This spends a lot of time out of commission. So like, if this got started on the next thing earlier, if I had 2 arms going with this, right? Like if you didn't have to go back and fetch that seems like the easiest thing to fix. So let's just get a second arm. And arm 2 is going to do this in a slightly different order, and I'm going to do it at the same time. And it's also going to wait to do some of this. Well, no, it's not going to do all of this. It's not going to turn around. It's going to wait for the turnaround to happen. What does this do? So that is still too fast. It collides. And then, but none of this needs to happen. Right? Oh shit, these things collide. But that's okay. Probably. This just doesn't need to go back right away. So, sorry, I have to debug this. What is 1 doing? This is where it flips around, and then it pushes down the track, and then it gets ready to go home. Like, it drops its thing and goes home to pick up the other thing. We don't need to do any of that. It can... I mean, honestly, it can just go down to the end of the track. So, how's that work? Okay, now it moved too fast and this didn't collide with it. Oh, because it should drop the thing. Right? It starts there. It should move 2. It should move 2 and then drop it. Something like this. And this one actually doesn't need to hitch. It can just keep going. Okay, and then I didn't push it far enough. Like, this needs another X because it starts off a little bit further away. No, it starts even further away than that, I guess. I don't know that this saved any time. that bit where it's waiting for so long. What is happening there? This just isn't ready yet. So this is 3 and 4. 3 and 4. Oh, here's the problem. What if I move this up like that? Then I think it knows how to optimize this better. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. I'm just letting it optimize a little. So because I didn't put in a gap here, because I didn't make the machine wait, it knows that it can sort of like start some of this earlier, and my cycles are way down. So it's that kind of thing. Like there's this very optimization sort of a thing. And you know, for me, honestly, it's a mix. Like the optimization is interesting, but it's less interesting for me to go back to these and try to like improve on my solutions than it is to sort of take what I know and try to build a really good solution to something as I go. So this is what I was doing last night. No, not this. Sorry. It was the timing crystal. And I posted the GIF of this up on Twitter. But I was like experimenting with a couple of different things, and one of them was these loops. So rather than having sort of things go back and forth and reset, you can construct these loops so that things are just always moving in a circle. And then the other thing that I was trying to work with was maximizing the resource usage. So this requires like one of these omegas and then just a ton of salt. And so I've got one salt source, and my idea was like, how can I produce salt like pretty quickly? Just like keep pumping out salt and haul it away and use it. And so that's sort of the idea, is that you can see that I got two arms that are just like pushing out salt, and then it goes down this sort of assembly line. What the heck happened here? Oh, I guess... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a solution that 100% didn't work. That's right. So this is part of why I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning doing this. Because I was like... I'm surprised that it broke. Because at one point, this was more or less working. Except that... Oh, no. That's exactly where it was supposed to break. Yeah, so the problem here is that I was constructing these, like... you know, this little triangle thing, and it's taking these down the assembly line, and it creates this triangle. And then I realized, like, actually this is much more complicated than the piece that I need to be building. And so I started over several times, but this was one of the times that I started over. And you can see it's using a similar sort of idea, but it only has one of these instead of two of them. It's going to build these little triangles that are much simpler, which is all that it needs to actually use. And then like the assembly line is laid out a little bit differently, but same thing. Like it's moving these things up and then rotating them around. So I was really excited to finally, after like 3.5 hours, finish this and have it all work. And it's doing this thing where it pumps them out like pretty fast. It's using this thing that I learned about like making the loops, and then it sort of just like sends everything down the assembly line and like drops them in. I felt really good about this because it's like there's not a lot of waiting time here. It's shooting out 3 of these pretty fast. and then there is a hitch, like it's doing 3 and then waiting for a second, but it's like pumping out salt pretty quick. So I felt really good about that, and then it like carries it around. I was real sad when I like got this and my cost is like way high and my area is pretty high and my cycles aren't even that great. So I was super disappointed at 3 o'clock in the morning when I got to this screen, and then I looked at the clock and I was like, holy shit, what am I doing? And that's sort of, that was my night. I think that probably one of the ways to improve this, like now that I'm thinking about it and going back to that old, you know, it wasn't this. It was not this. It was, the stamina potion. This thing, and using the, oh no, it wasn't this either. Whatever. The one that used the wheel, I think using that wheel can help like maximize the output of a thing. Yeah. Okay, so oh yeah, a couple of other things that I wanted to show here. So one of them is like there's this cool thing. What the heck is this doing? That's sort of like a bizarre move. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Anyway, it's constructing some kind of a complicated thing. Did fine. Did okay. There's this record GIF button that's just right here, and it's so easy. And it just sort of like plays through the thing and then saves it to your desktop. That's the kind of polish, like, this game is very satisfying, at least to to its core audience, right? Which is maybe not just programmers, but people who have an affinity to this kind of problem solving. But it is also, like, it has much higher production value than a lot of the previous Zachtronics stuff has had. A lot of that has been very bare bones, and this is, you know, this has got, like, a complicated UI that is very well put together and intuitive. It's clearly been iterated on. The art is like really clean and readable, and also like feels good and feels like it's representative of this fantasy world that the game describes. But it also sort of understands what its like unique features are, and compared to other games, and especially compared to other Zachtronics games, but really compared to anything that's on the market, these machines that it creates are mesmerizing. And I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but like the one that I posted last night that I sort of, you know, spent so long building, I have spent time just like staring at that GIF, just like watching it loop. And there's something just very satisfying about, especially knowing, having played enough of the game to sort of understand the pieces and how things are doing. There's something very entrancing about that sort of the dance of all of those arms and things. And that one is not even that good, right? Like, it did not score that well. If you look at GIFs of other people's things, so I'm just looking right now. Holy shit, what is even happening here? Wow. Okay. I'm looking at the GIF that Taraka gave the link to RotoPenguin. So RotoPenguin in the chat has posted this GIF that is just, I think, like an elegant solution to a problem that actually appears to use... I didn't not realize that you could do this, but it appears to have reagents that have been placed on like bonding glyphs, so you can it's actually like, look at the GIF, but it's like it's just pulling out a string of reagents in a very, very cool way. It also appears to have reagents placed on top of the outputs, and that is another thing that I didn't realize you could do. Anyway. Oh, okay. I see. The editor doesn't let you do that, but the save file loader doesn't care. So, got it. Very cool. So this is not a legal solution. This is not something that you can do in game, but you can very slightly hack it so that it will play a solution like this. And it is just like I said, it's entrancing, it's mesmerizing, and the fact that like it is so dance-like, and then it moves. Anyway, that's a thing that this game does that is unique, that other games don't have. And Zachtronics recognized that is that sort of satisfaction of watching the machine in motion, which is frankly part of, I think, why there's also optimization reasons, I'm sure, but why it it makes you create 6 products typically, which is more than you usually need to verify that the machine is working. But it means that when you solve the problem, you spend like a couple of minutes just watching the machine cycle through, and it is beautiful. And the ability to capture that in a GIF and save it with a single button press to your desktop, that's functionality that, like, at some point the developer had to make the choice between doing that and doing other things, right? Like, that's every feature, everything that a game includes is an opportunity cost, because no game is ever completed, like, to the level that a developer would want it to be. So this game is very good. It's very polished. It looks great. But this is something that they like spent some time to do, and it was a fantastic choice because it makes it so easy to share these mesmerizing images. The other thing that they do is, and this is another feature that I haven't seen Zachtronics engage in previously, and I actually haven't played with it at all, is they publish this journal, and the journal is essentially new levels designed by Zachtronics and published periodically. So the game is continually getting new levels. And then there is also a puzzle editor so that you can create custom puzzles and upload them to Steam Workshop. And then you can explore Steam Workshop for all sorts of user-created puzzles. Since these puzzles are so sort of like technically simple, it's relatively easy. I mean, it's quite easy for individuals, players, to generate that sort of like really just what is the product, what is the configuration that the product needs to be, and then supply the reagents for it. So you do that, and then like people can come up with solutions to that. It's really, really cool. So I saw a couple of question things. I'm gonna start at the top and let's switch over. Let's just do some Q&A for a little while.